Ngā mihi nui o te rā. I'd like to remind you that the council meeting will be live streamed, the public part of it anyway, so the camera's around here. For voting purposes, councillors are reminded to raise their hands for or against any proposal. I don't have any apologies.
No, we don't have any apologies.
Okay. I would like to make one announcement regarding items on the agenda, which I'll do now, which is that I propose to defer the item on the waste bylaw because officers have asked me, this is 3.2, officers have said that there's some minor clarification of wording that is essential to have done, so that will be recirculated. Mr. Chick's happy to answer questions if anyone has got a particular question. Okay. I now have the pleasure of announcing 3 absolutely positively Wellingtonian awards. And today we're going to honour 3 members of our community. Robert Tafare for his community contribution, Colleen Pobar of the Lochiel Marching Drill Team, and Chris Stratfield for his volunteering work. So to our recipients and to their family and friends, e ngā iwi, e ngā reo, e ngā mana, e rau rangatira mā. Nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai. Ki te whakatutuki I te kaupapa o tēnei rā. Tēnā koutou katoa. And I'd like to ask Billy to join me in the waiata and anyone else who feels thoroughly confident with Hutia Tarito. Hutia Tarito o te hara peke e keia te kumako e ko uia mai koe ara he aha te mea nui he tangata awe he tangata awe. And I'd like to now read Robert Tafare's citation. It's my absolute pleasure to present this absolutely positively Wellingtonian award to Robert Tafare for his long-time commitment to Wellington. Robert runs Mokai Kainga, the Awhiro Community Gardens in Happy Valley and the Tenera Park Community Gardens in Brooklyn. He provides social support to Māori and is a dedicated community-minded individual. And as you can see from the screens up there, he was once upon our Māori Standing Committee. There's a couple of people there that you may have some challenges in recognising. Robert arrived in Wellington in the late 1960s and took up the position of minister at Wesley Methodist Church, and he's held many diverse roles, including coordinator of Ngā Tauraheri Kiponiki. For years at Mokai Kainga, Robert has offered Māori in need a safe place to stay and get back on their feet. He's always there for someone in need of support and friendship, and he's been a leader in the Wellington community for most of his life. The kaupapa underpinning Mokai Kainga is health, education, welfare and employment services for Māori by Māori. A big part of this is sustainability, and Mokai Kainga has strong connections with the community gardens, a very practical composting system, and an ecologically sustainable irrigation system. Robert's friendly attitude welcomes everyone to the community gardens he oversees. Neighbours, residents and visitors are all welcome to enjoy these little slices of paradise. And I have to say, anyone that hasn't been to the Awhiro community gardens should go. You can feed the eels, look at the ducks, play in the playgrounds. It's a wonderful facility. I first met Robert in the early 90s when we were members of the Māori Standing Committee. He's also been involved with Māori Wardens, has supervised probation service referrals, and has been very active in encouraging people to register to vote in general and, I hope, local elections. He actually once was a candidate, but we will draw a veil over that as we come up to another election. And on behalf of Wellington City Council, I'd like to thank Robert and declare him an absolutely positively Wellingtonian. Kia ora, and please come up and say a few words, Robert.
Tēnā koe, Celia, te manukura o tēnei kaunihira. Ka mihi au kia koutou ngā kaunihira o Pōneke kia tai mai. Kia koutou kua tai mai I runga I te kaupapa o tēnei rā. Nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Could I say to the Mayor, councillors and staff of this council, I consider it a great privilege to receive such an award presented to me tonight. In appreciation, I would like to take the opportunity to convey a very big thank you to Council for the partnership you have had with Mokai Kāinga over a period of 15 years. Since 1990, you have supplied us with funding to provide social service to Māori and the community. And I can assure you that we have spent that funding, ratepayers' money of course, in a most positive way. Leasing land off council at a peppercorn rental to set up community gardens at Tenera Park and Awhiro Bay. Allowing families and organisations to grow vegetables, a most successful project that we can be proud of today. We were fortunate to be housed by council over 11 years in Victoria Arcade. And when they decided to sell the building with the hope of relocating us, we negotiated with council to provide a top over monies we had invested, thus allowing us for the first time to purchase property at 72 Happy Valley Road, Awhiro Bay, enabling us to set up base and provide social service at its best. The community gardens, housing for the vulnerable, the alcoholics, the drug addicts, the homeless, and those discharged from prison. In 1995, we formed a partnership with the Department of Corrections and signed a contract to be a sponsor and an agent for men and women, ordered by the courts to do their hour of community work, maintaining the 2 community gardens and the grounds of Mokai Kāinga. We believe that these projects mentioned are the areas where council money was well spent to produce social service to Māori, for Māori and the community, and we hope that this can carry on. This award has come at a convenient time when at the age of 75 I am standing down from the role of Chief Executive and making way for new blood, new initiatives and new technology. In conclusion, the whānau of Mokai Kāinga requested I make mention of the Mayor, Celia Wade-Brown, who came to visit us 4 times over this last year. And she even had the cheek to come the other night to make sure that I was going to be here tonight. Let's hope other mayors will follow in her footsteps and pay a visit to us. With local body elections approaching, I would also like to make mention of Paul. Paul, kia ora, tēnā koe, kei te miau kia koe, and his support for us in our time of need. Celia, we know that you are standing down this year's election, but we want to wish you well from Mokaikanga for your future ambitions. No te raurau, nāku te raurau. Ka ora te manuhiri. Your basket and my basket has been sufficient to provide for the people in the community. Kia ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora hui anō tātou.
Now, if you thought Robert had been serving the community for a long time, we have an equally long term but very different next recipient. I'd like to read the citation for Colleen Pobar. She has led the Lochiel marching drill team to international recognition. For 50 years, Colleen has 50, not 15, 50. For 50 years, Colleen has been in charge of Lochiel, an internationally acclaimed all-woman marching group based in Wellington. Lochiel has performed across many parts of the world, including Australia, Britain, Hong Kong, USA, Canada, South Africa, Japan, Holland, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. They are a recurring and much-loved feature of the Edinburgh military tattoo. They first performed in Edinburgh in 1978, and many of people at this table will have also seen them at the recent tattoo in February 2015. They've been back a number of times since, and well done, Colleen, for making today, because they arrived back from Edinburgh this morning. When they were performing in Wellington earlier this year, 2016, time does fly, but not that fast, Lochiel performed especially arranged cuts of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit soundtracks, which was a wonderful way of promoting some of the special things in Wellington. A unique opportunity to show a home crowd the skills they receive international acclaim for. By day, Colleen manages a pipeline cleaning business. By night, she works to catapult Wellington marchers onto the world stage. Her tireless drive and passion has seen Lochiel achieving incredible things. And that includes a huge amount of fundraising. It's not cheap to take 24 people to Edinburgh. She caught the marching bug when she was very young and would watch her neighbours practice over the back fence. It was inevitable that she would get involved in marching. Her father was a coach, her mother was a chaperone, and all her sisters marched. Colleen was coaching by age 16, and when she took over Lochiel in 1966, they won their first New Zealand Senior Championship title. In 1996, she received a Queen's Service Medal for service to the community. So on behalf of Council, and I'm glad to award Colleen Pobar QSM this APW for the Lochiel Marching Drill Team. Congratulations. Say a word or two to everybody. This for
Your Worship, the Mayor, members of Council, members of the public, it's a great thrill to receive this award, particularly in a small sport like marching. It's struggles for funds, and I've been lucky enough to develop a group of youngsters over the years that have been truly committed in representing their city and their country, and they've also developed great skills in the sport for their life in the workforce, and Edinburgh in particular is a very favourite place for them to go. That castle is just outstanding if you've ever been there. And while the Lord of the Rings music in Wellington was lovely, the castle was beautifully lit up with dragons coming off it. It was just amazing, the backdrop in Edinburgh this year. So we just come off 28 performances, right back to 2:30 this morning, so it's been rather busy. But we're thrilled to represent the city. Thank you very much.
And thirdly, I'd like to present tonight's final APW award to Chris Stratfield for his selfless volunteer work. Chris is originally from the UK. Armed with a computer science degree, he went to Geneva and developed his IT skills working for the Federation of International Civil Servants. Chris moved to Wellington 17 years ago, and ever since he's used his consummate tech skills to better Wellington's volunteer sector. He's generously donated his time and his skills, which has had a very far-reaching impact in the Wellington community. Chris is a stalwart of Volunteer Wellington. Recently, he custom-built the organisation a complex database and website. They estimate the market value of this system would be in excess of $500,000. He's managed Volunteer Wellington's ICT for 15 years, and is always on hand if there's a hitch or a glitch. He's managed 3 office moves for the organisation, retrofitting offices, undertaking building and construction work, and redoing all of their ICT networking and cabling. But it's not all about the virtual world. For nearly 6 years, Chris has managed Forest and Bird's native plant propagation nursery. He's eco-sourced native plant seeds and propagated them for planting in local restoration projects. He's sat on several boards, including the Motor Neurone Disease Association. He helped establish their office in Wellington, Volunteering New Zealand, Literacy Aotearoa, and Internet New Zealand. He's also provided ICT support and maintenance for Vincent's art workshop for over 5 years. And the coordinator said they're very grateful for his skills and generosity. Everyone who knows Chris is unanimously of the opinion he is a generous, highly skilled person with a heart of gold. And on behalf of Council, I declare Chris an absolutely, positively Wellingtonian.
Very briefly, I'd just like to thank everybody. It's very humbling to be nominated for this award and very lovely to receive it. It was completely unexpected and it's still somewhat emotional for me, actually. So I'd like to thank everybody here, thank the Mayor and thank Council and the officers, just because, well, I didn't really expect to get anything in my life, so that's very good. Thank you.
Now I feel quite emotional about it too, because those are the last, unless something magical happens in the next month, I wasn't proposing to do any at the last meeting, so those are the final absolutely positively Wellingtonian awards. And what a lovely mixture, what great talents, and none of you could quite do the job that the other ones do. So how important it is to find your passion and follow it. So let's give them all a round of applause and then they can farewell. or you can stay for the whole of the debate of the meeting. So we might like to just take a moment to exit now. Oh, you put it there. So I'd like to move to 1.4, conflict of interest declarations. Does any member present have a conflict they wish to declare? Right. So we'll now move on to 1.5, confirmation of minutes. I move that the Council approve the minutes of the ordinary Council meeting held on the 17th of August 2016. I move. Thank you, Councillor Ahapini Mercer. Moved and seconded. Please raise your hands if you're in favour. Anyone against? I declare that carried. We're now moving straight to committee reports, and I would like to ask Councillor Foster to introduce the report Car Share Policy.
No, I'm going to say what I want to say. Thanks. Well, look, first of all, I want to say I'm delighted to I'm delighted to try again. I'm delighted to introduce this policy, Madam Mayor, and just to say, look, the reason, in a sense, this feels like it's quite a long time after we debated it at Transport and Urban Development. That was simply because the Transport and Urban Development Committee in June was the day after the previous council meeting, and because it's a policy, it has to come here. What I was delighted by is that when I first brought this to council, how enthusiastic everybody was about supporting it. So I think it's really great, and council's been thoroughly supportive right the way throughout the process. We've been through a consultation process on this, and again, most people were supportive of this. We got feedback from the various different car share operators, or would-be car share operators. We've run a trial to a degree, but in a sense, this whole thing is still a trial. And you see there in the policy the reference to a 2-year period, and that's because what we're dealing with, Madam Mayor, is a group of essentially fledgling businesses. City Hop's been around for a while, but the other car share operators, Rome, Mevo and Your Drive, who we have been working with, are all very much at formative stages. In fact, Mevo, for example, hasn't even launched. They've been busy in the process of actually gaining clientele, working to gain clientele, and I know that is going pretty well. And actually, it's nice to see Eric here. So, the whole team here. So it's so they're doing a good job there of building a clientele and a market. So I think it's really, really exciting. So it is a trial. We are dealing with fledgling businesses, but I hope that this is something which will be really valued by Wellingtonians. And why do I think it will work in Wellington? Well, obviously we see it working in Sydney, and it's been going very well in Sydney. We see it working in a number of other jurisdictions overseas. But I think Wellington is, and I was at a conference where I was speaking yesterday on this, Wellington is quite different from any other part of the country in terms of our transport choices that we make. Very different in terms of the nature of the city and the setup of the city, and a compact urban form. The number of people who've chosen to live in the downtown area is fantastic, and it's those people in particular who often choose or cannot have a car. The cost of owning a car in the downtown area is very significant. The cost of not only owning it, but the car parking that goes with it. And so for people in that situation, whether it's businesses or residents, this gives them the opportunity to be able to access a car on those few occasions which they might want to have one. And we know that the car, generally speaking, even our own cars in a suburban situation, lie idle essentially 95% of the time. If you happen to be in a downtown area, they're probably going to be idle 99% of the time, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to actually own a car and all the costs that go with it. So if you do need to own it, to have a car occasionally, the opportunity to join into a car share program like these hopefully will be something which is very, very attractive. The final thing to say, Madam Mayor, or two things to say. One is that there's a reference in the policy here to in the first page of the policy to the population growth expectations. It says we're actually at 203,800 was the last number we had. Our population actually is growing quite fast, and that 250,000 which is referred to there probably is very much at the bottom end of the spectrum, and we are reviewing those numbers. It's likely to be considerably more than that. It may be as high as 300,000, and if I can draw to your attention the comment there, which is traffic volumes are likely to increase further, exacerbating congestion levels. And I think, councillors, we should all bear this in mind, because doing what we've been doing in the past is not going to work in the future with that higher number of people living in our city. And that means we are going to need more people using alternatives, which means walking, cycling, use of public transport. And this essentially is another string to our bow in terms of effectively public transport, and that is why we are offering parking for this, just as we do for taxis and for buses. So I'm delighted to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Lester, do you wish to second? Yeah, do you wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? I just want to say how pleased I am that we've got a car share policy. There have been a number of times when we have made general policy points about supporting car share in principle, but it's about time we actually got on and did something rather more precise about how we support it. I also note that we are treating at the moment electric car share systems the same as other car share systems, but at least at this time we can say we have now co-installed some charging points at Zealandia. So we are moving towards a more modern, progressive transport system. Would you like a right of reply, Councillor?
To say, because I did run out of time, and that is to thank Elise Webster and Moana Maki particularly for their work on this, because I think they've both been absolute stars in the work they've put into this. And of course also your comment about electric vehicles, is we are also providing free spaces for electric charging, and we are going to be rolling a number of those out in the not too distant future. So it's concrete things that we are doing to make our city more sustainable.
So please vote on this pro-car policy. Raise your hands if you're in favour. Those against? So I declare that passed unanimously. So now go to GFP. So if you, where's the page for the, we now will move straight to 3.3. CapEx and OpEx review. Councillor Lester, please introduce the report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. We discussed this at length just last week. I have nothing further to add from the debate that we had, so I move.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Eagle, do you wish to speak? Councillor Marsh, do you wish to speak? I just saw Councillor Eagle first, so... Thank you, councillors. I think we're heading for this could be an offensive comment area, so let's move on. Does anyone else wish to speak to? Does anyone else? Councillor Freed, do you wish to speak to the item? No. Well, let's move along then. Thank you. Those in favour, please raise your hand. That's everybody. I declare that unanimous. On this page. I now move that for the next item, 4.1, we move into public excluded to protect the privacy of an individual person.